Diego, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Big fan of your content, big fan of your hustle and grind. How are you?
I'm doing well. Appreciate the invitation to be on the show. It was kind of fun to get invited. I have a podcast too, so it's very rare that I'm on this side of an interview, and I'm excited. Yeah.
Right. I'm happy to hear that because you do an excellent job doing your podcast, and this is now all about you, and you will definitely feel that as I'm asking the question. So I'll just jump straight into the first question I ask every single guest at the start of the podcast. Let's strip away your achievements. Let's strip away your entrepreneurship, all the technical knowledge outside of your profession. I want to know, and we want to know, who are you? What do you
Mm,
like doing? What's your passion? So outside of real estate or anything like that yet, we want to know who you are.
yeah. Great. I love that question. I'm an Earthling, and
Me
have been
too.
an Earthling since I was born. And the human experience is an interesting one. And I'm a dad. I'd like to label myself as one because I absolutely love my family and I love my son. But I think, to your question, it's really like I'm a human being, with or what a dear friend used to call us human beings bipedals of saline solution, where we're just these organisms that are floating around on a big old rock that's floating around in space. So outside of the ego and the day-to-day grind and what we do, what I do for a living, I'm rooted in the human experience quite a bit. It's a wonderful experience.
Gotcha. Well, I love that. It's very rare that we get to talk to a person, and we will get to that deeper because I like these conversations. Let's talk about existence, all that, but later, or now if you want to talk to us about your story. What was your journey like being a human being in a big rock flying through space? Right? We
Yeah,
can't even understand how time and space works. Well, like
it's wild.
how? Right. Tell me your journey, and then let hopefully it leads to your business.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was 3 years old. Is what my
What?
family tells me. I've been just a hustler since I was a kid,
Okay.
and I took I think my early adolescence into a kind of an entrepreneurial. I had an entrepreneurial mindset like really early on. So anytime the family had a garage sale, or anytime I had an opportunity to sell my baseball cards, or if I could set up a table at the corner of the street and just sell stuff. Um, Always been a fan of the sales experience and the transaction, the exchange, of a good or a service, and that's been with me my whole life. So I've been in sales for gosh since I started selling pizzas at 15 years old at Round Table. Like you guys should use these ingredients for this particular pizza because it's the best pizza. So I think my early on my identity as a salesperson and as an entrepreneur just really propelled me into high school and um, early on in college, which I ended up dropping out of because I just couldn't I couldn't really resonate with any of the education that was brought to me, and so I wanted to learn what I wanted to learn, and so I dropped out and began to explore the University of Life, and I ended up majoring in direct experience, and so going in and out of different family businesses, and then eventually starting my own businesses. But I think going back to your question, entrepreneurship and like just building something from nothing has been such a blast for me since playing with Legos. Just a big fan of building stuff.
So it was like I would like to say that it's not no, well now I believe it's a skill for you. Everything you've learned it's honed into a skill, but it's always been a gift, right? uh, being an entrepreneur, wanting to talk to people. You said it was a transaction, right? You said it was a transacting, exchanging product. But outside of that, what about entrepreneurship that got you, if you can remember?
Um, Seeing people light up, when closing, a deal, quote unquote, a deal. I mean, it could have been a baseball card. It could have been, dating myself, but like Pogs. We used to play with Pogs quite a bit when I was a kid, and we would trade Pogs, and just that small little interaction just really was a lot of fun with me, and seeing people light up and me lighting up as well. And it's like, whoa, we can like work together to have a lot of fun and grow. So that, I think, was like a huge dopamine hit early on, and I've always just been kind of chasing those hits of dopamine. And I get them in my day to day today, where you meet an amazing person, you get a dopamine hit. You get a contract sign, that's a dopamine hit. Like, there's just like these constant um feel good moments that I experience in entrepreneurship. And I have always been purpose driven, and not just having it be so transactional, but more like, how can this value that we bring one another, like, rise all boats, like this tide? How can we all come up on this deal? And so that's really focused my kind of career in values and ethics and principles and integrity, and legacy building. Because over the course of time, you do so many deals, and it's you know what really works, and the tactics and the strategies, and the conversations that we have really set us apart if we focus on the purpose and the values. you know
Gotcha. Well, I have a lot more questions, but I don't want this to slip my mind. What's your purpose now?
Ooh, my purpose right now hasn't really changed since starting my official professional career, and that's to help people and planet. So I've always used the core ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share, and drive those ethics with very clear principles. And those are rooted in wellness and health, and care for one another and the planet. So that brings me to a place of service. And as Alex Harmozy would say it, like duty. Um, I feel like I need to just be used up in this lifetime. And I have, some gifts and some things to give. And, I'm here to, to supply value, and to rise people up as much as possible. So I'd say that would be my purpose.
Oh, I got, if
Yeah.
I were to simplify that, it's to help each other, right? To have a
Yeah.
purpose in like helping anybody and anything in any way you can. That's really powerful. And
Yeah.
you said when your official professional career started, and I'm pretty interested in that. I, based on the story that you were saying, I think you started with the W-2s, right? Of course. And
hmm
then how do you transition into real estate? And what's the official, well, what is the official professional career?
Well, it really began uh, at a natural food store in Burlingame, California, called Earthbeam Natural Foods. And at the time, I think I was probably about 22 years old or 23 years old. I was homeless, but driven by a purpose and wanting to solve the world's problems. And that was just shortly after September 11th. It felt like there was a lot of pain and anguish that I felt like I needed to do something about. So uh, I began to explore, you know, ways to help society and human civilization, and kind of rooted from a Spanish Italian family. So food and family has always been kind of a cornerstone of our experience, our existence. And we share food, and we congregate, and we tell stories, and we share. And so that was kind of a natural place for me to start. and um, started to work as a grocer and explore a merchant kind of persona. And so I started work at a couple of local grocers and found that they were very conventional and corporate in nature, and they weren't really addressing some of the deeper values that I was so um, tied to and drawn to. So I ended up finding a small little mom and pop shop not too far away from where I lived, and it turned out to be an amazing place that had started in 1971 on Earth Day. And the owners at first they didn't want to hire me. I was like, look, you guys really need to hire me. I will work so hard. Everything that you guys are doing here, this is it for me. Like, I want to do what you're doing. I found my place. And they were like, look, we're just not hiring. We appreciate your interest, but we're just not hiring. So it took me about 5 follow-ups and finally a face-to-face, like belly-to-belly meeting with the owner. And we went to Giuliano's cafe next door to have a cup of coffee and, convinced him to hire me. And, he was like, look, I'm not going to hire you, but if you want to take $7 an hour, 10 hours a week, you can sweep the floors and, you can, we'll bring you on. And I was like, cool, done. I'm so happy to have
here.
my foot. Yeah, I will literally work for pennies. I just want to be here. And nearly 10 years later, it became the the playing field or the platform for me to learn how to talk to people, how to help people who were in distress, because as a health food shop, as you can imagine, a lot of unhealthy people would walk in the door mentally and physically. So, I learned a lot about the natural food industry and farming and agriculture and landscape through that business. So, make a long story long, I ended up learning about some deeper passions that I had regarding the land and agriculture. And so as I began to work more closely with farmers directly and bring their products into the store and do more farm to table stuff or farm to consumer marketing, it was pretty clear like I wanted to start my own kind of farm planning or farm marketing, farm design, build business that then slowly morphed into a construction company, design, build, construction company. And ownership at the store incubated and really helped me evolve that concept into reality. And they supported me every bit of the way. And so I was able to start a company while helping grow this other company. And it was all rooted in wellness and permaculture and regenerative design and non-GMO food and organic food. It was just like really, really good heartwarming stuff, man. And that launched my official entrepreneurial career, because then I left the nest, so to speak, and I was able to flap my wings and fly into doing my own thing, having my own business. And I ended up from there, and we still have that company 17 years later, with staff and contractors and engineers and architects and everybody in between to help our local county home improvement industry. Through that business is where I was exposed to real estate at like a deeper level. So as a contractor doing projects for homeowners and then eventually investors, I began to learn that real estate was extremely powerful. And I wanted to dive more deeply into learning more about the space and the industry. And then because I'm such a sponge and love learning, I just took it upon myself to apply my entrepreneurial principles and mindset to getting a real estate license and doing real estate transactions from a brokering perspective rather than from, the vendor perspective or the contractor perspective. So, yeah.
Well, that was a lot of questions are popping up now. So, who was your biggest influence? It seems like the overarching energy I'm getting here is like you've always been in tune with the world and life, and like you've always known from the moment you walked to that mom and pop store, you were so passionate in saying, I want to be here, right? And I think you've always been like that when you were young. Do you think you've had an influence, like maybe your parents or a mentor, for you to be this in tune with the world and life?
Yeah. My mentor, David
Ah, okay,
Hinckle,
okay.
who was the
The owner of
owner,
the
or one of
the
the owners of the
Earthbeam, right?
Earthbeam Natural Foods. Yeah. So he along with four others started the business in 1971, and they all ended up dissolving their stakeholdership in the company. And David ended up becoming the sole owner in probably like the early 80s, late 70s. And I've learned so much from him, not only about business, how to operate and run a business, um, more importantly, what not to do. The mistakes that he's made over his career, which spanned nearly 50 years, was extremely valuable. But his mindset, his heart, his his consistency, just showing up every day and turning that key, and focusing on helping others, was just so inspiring, that I wanted to emulate that persona and become, a person of integrity and service, and to ultimately just help as many people as possible. So that was massive. Moving into, Circle Foot, which was the business that I had started at Earthbeam. It was because of David that I was so successful in that transition, but more importantly, helping me like develop the mindset and the skills to take it to a whole nother level. So that business has really just completely changed my life. And I say Earthbeam, Circle Foot obviously has, because that was the literal vehicle that was projecting me into where I am today. But that store was, you know, just a beautiful place to be.
Sorry if I didn't catch this, but like you were 22, right? You were 22, 23, and you entered
Hmm.
that Earth Beam, and you just and said, "Hey, I wanted to work here." I want to get into your mind, and it was such a powerful moment. I was picturing it as if I was there, honestly, and like, what would specifically 22-year-old, 23-year-old Diego, what was going on in your head that made you say, you really wanted to be there? I'm very curious. Like, what made you want to be there even before you met the people, or did you meet them before? Well, where did that adamance come from?
Uh, Great question. Two immediate things come to mind. The first one is obviously the brand, the vision, and the work that they were doing. They were focused on neighborhood, community development through the uh, buying and selling of organic food, healthy, local, organic food. So that was the antithesis to the Trader Joe corporate bullshit that I was coming out of. So that really resonated with me. So that was the first thing. That's what drew me into the door. What kept me in the door was the energy. And this is really, like, I don't want to sound foo lala, but like it was the smell, it was the energy, the vibe, the people. Um, I can still smell the walls of that building because it was just so much love went into that space. It just had a like a certain something to it, like it was just like you open up a bottle of wine that's been, curating for so long and you just smell that. It's like that kind of vintage um is what like really
Antique,
kept,
right? And yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it kept me there because it not only looked good from the outside, but it felt good as I, started to work in the space. And more day in and day out, it was just like, whoa, this is, I found my tribe, found my people, my community. The food was phenomenal and clean and organic and free of pretty much any garbage that you would typically see in American processed food. Um, so yeah, that's what kept me in the door was the just that vibe. Man, it was good vibe.
Did you know them? So you're originally from California, right?
I was born in
Oh,
Houston,
okay.
Texas, and my dad was a hardware software engineer. And he brought us. Well, I was born in Houston, and my mom and my dad came from South America, and then their parents were first generation South Americans as well. So, or I'm sorry, my parents were first generation South Americans, and then my grandparents came from Spain and Italy, and they had me at an early age in Houston. My dad was a hardware software engineer that was avidly looking for a good job, and at the time Silicon Valley was taking off, so he moved us from Houston to the peninsula in San Mateo County when I was about 3 or 4, and I've been here ever since. Obviously left for school and come back and travel a little bit, but I've been rooted here and on the peninsula nearly my whole life.
Dang. So did you know this? I don't want to make this about the store, but I'm really curious. Again, this is just I want to get to know you more and how you think about your life story, I'd say. Did you know, is that David Hinkle, right? Or
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Did you know him and his wife before you entered the store? It was
No.
just the
And
energy you wanted there. What were they known in
it,
the neighborhood?
it literally, the name Earthbeam was like, when you think of like Batman, when they beam up Batman's logo and then all of a sudden Batman shows up, like that's how I felt about this place. Like, how have I been on the peninsula my whole life and never heard of this corner shop? Like Broadway, Midtown, Burlingame. Burlingame's got two. There's a downtown, like a little more kind of bougie boutique, and then you've got like the blue collar Midtown folks. And so they were on Broadway for so many years. And I've been around, the peninsula, like I know it like the back of my hand, and I was so surprised. I'd never come across this place called Earthbeam. So I felt like it was, the name obviously is just very attractive. It was very attractive to me at the time. So I didn't know who David was. But as I began to learn more about who David was, uh, all of these connections started to occur, like that 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. We had like his best friend was my history teacher in high school. Like, it just really, really, really cool. Like we were kind of meant to meet, and to work together for a bit. So that was really cool.
I believe that. That's you said meant to be because like for again 22 20 like 22 I was playing video games, man. Like for you to know like it resonates with me. That's why I used the word earlier that it seems like you were in tune. I think that's a really
Yeah.
perfect word for you. Were in tune with the world and life just for you to know. Just I want to be there and walk with the energy, and I also resonate with I it's not foo lala or like woo woo for me to hear that food is energy. And I know how
Hmm.
you felt that way. And of course, the people gave that too, right? They gave that energy. There's a reason why plants die if you have the wrong energy, right? I believe that. And that smell of the earth, because we do have those stories in Chattanooga too. And like, I'm a firm believer in
Hmm.
that. So, um, where'd you learn to be so in tune with the world? So after that, I guess David Hinkle mentored you. How did you keep it throughout? Because you're in real estate now, a little bit more cutthroat, right? So how did you maintain this kind of like again, how did you maintain you being in tune with the world?
Yeah, great question. I think I mean, going back to my early age, I've always been somewhat driven and entrepreneurial, and so I think that level of curiosity has always been with me, and I had to grow up pretty quickly. I had a pretty decent upbringing. I'd say lower middle class. We went to a good school. Obviously San Mateo County being very clean and safe in the 80s and 90s, still is today, honestly. Um, but having to move out and be on my own after high school with very little help from my parents definitely was this chip that began to kind of grow on my shoulder. And I've always been driven, so I don't know, this chip on my shoulder just became something like, I'm going to show you that I can do what I want to do, and it's going to be amazing. And I think that stems a lot from my father, because he, wanted, and coming from Spanish Italian upbringing, it's very, and my parents were very clean and very, proper people and conservative. Yeah. Um, he wanted me to be an engineer and to be a lawyer or a doctor, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a skateboarder. I wanted to be a professional athlete. I wanted to express myself in other ways than this heavy kind of engineering and mathematical expression. So that didn't really resonate too well with him. And so he was like, look, if you're not going to do this, then you're on your own. And I'm like, great, I'm on my own. And so watch. And, you know, gosh, I'd say 25 years later now, I'm so glad I made that decision, because I built a beautiful life for myself and my family, and it's continuing to bear fruit, which is, I'm so freaking grateful for.
Gotcha. So it came from like, so it's just for me, it's, I don't want to say like it's a contradictory, or it contradicts, like, because usually if you are, driven, curious, and especially naturally inclined to be an entrepreneur, again, I use the word cutthroat, right? Most people tend to be like, I gotta get it. But then you were very calm and very collected, and like knows where he wants to go. And like, again, up to now still doesn't look, I mean, you look back, but like, I'd still take the same path, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's a big deal. What would you say? I think I'm resonating with this because I'm in the crossroads, I would say, of like, do I go for like, all hard, burn the boats? But I also have that side,
Mm,
and like, you know
hmm.
take it slowly, but be aware. What's your
Yeah.
perspective in that kind of balance?
So before starting at the store, my whole life I was playing checkers. My whole life, just like, let's just blast through things, smash and grab. And then I meet David, and then David's playing chess, strategy and intention, and just taking your time, but taking action, like being very protracted and thoughtful, and mindful, like being able to adopt that mindset along with this checkered kind of smash and grab mindset. Equipped, like I was then able to equip myself with the ability to have the blast through something when you need to, but then also if I need to, like, be more delicate and more sensitive, or more like finesse through something, just be a little more um mindful. Obviously that gained through experience and knowledge and time. The more I kind of worked on my craft, and the more I kept sharpening my pencil, the better I got at talking to people and communicating and negotiating and developing and manifesting. Um, but it's always been because I've been so freaking curious about things. I want to learn and I want to grow. And I like building stuff. Like I love building something and then standing back and going, gosh, that was pretty fun, kind of crazy. In fact, I would probably do that a little differently, but let's do the next one, and then integrate the lesson. So yeah, really cool stuff. And to your, back to your point about, real estate being cutthroat. The it is true, especially commercial real estate, where I spend the majority of my day to days now as an advisor with One West Group. We're doing active, large scale commercial transactions and working with family offices and institutions and REITs and high net worth individuals is very different than where I came from, working with homeowners and more emotions. So I'd say learning about how to strike a balance from my upbringing to the strategy of playing chess, I think is really piqued my interest more in the commercial space because of that. It being more about finances and strategy than it is about emotions, and how like the kitchen layout is, or if the backyard's big enough,
Yeah.
kind
Trivial
of.
stuff.
Well, I wouldn't say trivially. I would just say it's different. Like residential and commercial, or they're both fruit, but apples and oranges. They're completely different. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, you've worked as a contractor, an investor, advisor, and ultimately an entrepreneur, right? Looking back, what experience in your early life shaped the way you approach opportunities and risk today? Not going back to like when you were in the Earthbeam store, but just generally when you entered real estate. What experience in your early life as a realtor or like an entrepreneur shaped the way see opportunities and risk?
Yeah. Fortunately, didn't do it like a lot of others do it, where they don't have a mentor, or they don't have a coach, or they don't have a team. So I was able to uh, tuck myself under others' wings and learn how they've done things. And I think I took that mostly from my experience with David, because after working with David, it became very clear to me how important it is to have a coach and a mentor, somebody that you can work with, alongside with, and learn from. I love using that analogy of changing a car tire. If like you've never changed a car tire, you're obviously going to want to talk to somebody who's changed 1,000 car tires, and you're going to have them teach you how to change a car tire. So they'll change the car tire in front of you, and you watch intently, and then they'll take it off and then ask you to do it. But rather than just walking away and leaving you at your own whim, they'll be right behind you, watching you change that car tire, giving you the instrumental feedback. Maybe you should turn that lug nut a little more. Maybe you should put in a little more torque, or when you put, like giving you that really important criticism is so key, so that when you do them on your own now, like you feel competent and confident that you can, change the next 500 car tires with like your eyes closed. So getting into the real estate space, especially coming out of construction, for instance, it's like there's a blueprint, there's a set of plans, you have to follow those set of plans, and then it's like rinse and repeat. And so I applied that to real estate more as an investor to start, and then I wanted to become more active in the transaction as a broker. And then I moved further down the line as an investment sales advisor for commercial property. And that, now I feel like I've been doing this now for a little over 5 years. Like now I'm just like in my happy place. Cause I'm learning so much. And it, like, these deals are just a blast. And they're not, so and maybe it's because I've been doing the home improvement thing for so long. Working on a medical office building is far more exciting now to me than like a 5-bed 3-bath remodel. Yeah.
Were were you always in commercial real estate? Talk to us about your sorry, talk to us about your first deal or like first dealings with real estate. If your first deal is not interesting enough, what was your most interesting? And if that's your first deal, please tell us. Tell us a story.
So the first deal was my primary residence, buying my own home
Oh,
and
wow.
being on the peninsula. Um, it's just been so difficult for many the affordability crisis on the peninsula is unlike anything that you really see in the United States, unless you're in New York or New Jersey. Typically, the coasts tend to be where affordability is, it's the biggest issue. So moving through my career, I always was leasing and renting spaces and, leveling up and leveling up and leveling up the space, but never actually buying the space. So, as a relationship driven entrepreneur, purpose driven entrepreneur, I was really leaning on to those relationships, leaning into those relationships. And, every time I moved into a place that I really enjoyed, really liked, I was always pitching like, hey, would you sell the property to me?
Yeah, as expected, yeah.
And like, hey, why don't I just make you payments? Like, I'm already making you payments. Like, let me just make you payments. And, thinking I didn't really realize it was like what you would call seller financing, but like, just like, look, I'm making you payments already. Why don't you just give me the property and, I'll make you payments. I'll give you a down payment. I'll take care of everything. You don't have to worry about it. And so I nearly got there with my last house, which was in like 2015, and had a wonderful relationship with the owner. However, through COVID, it just became very difficult to work out a deal. So serendipitously enough, I had a client who we had renovated 20 of his units in town, and him and his wife were divorced in California. And we're like, hey, we're leaving our homestead and we're actively looking for people to rent the house. Would you want to come out and take a look? And it just so happened at the time, this other place I was living at was, deteriorating. Not the relationships so much, but like literally the walls. We were
The
starting to
place.
see mold coming through, and
Right.
it's interesting how life works, And so we walked the place and fell in love with it immediately. And it like ticked all of the boxes on my vision board that I had from 2010, when I was adamant about buying a home after my son was born. And it had all of the boxes ticked. So immediately it was like, look, like, why don't you sell me this? And so we ended up striking a seller financed deal, lease option. And, he was a, he is a commercial broker. So that exposed me quite a bit to the commercial real estate space. And over time, found out that his family literally built the peninsula. His grandfather, G.W. Williams, had, along with his partner, essentially they built massive neighborhoods here after the war, World War II. Just a really big presence in San Mateo County, and learned about that story. And obviously, legacy and family business and all of that just extremely resonated with me. And that was like when I knew life was pushing me into this commercial real estate space. And the more I got into it, the more I loved it, and the more the universe was like giving me all of these wonderful hints that this is where I need to be and this is what I need to do. And so after doing that transaction, started buying up investment properties, and then started my career as an advisor in the commercial space. And now I'm leaning even more heavily into advisory and into brokerage. So kind of letting go of the investment principal um, persona right now, and then I'm moving more into brokerage. And I'm so happy I am, because we're doing so many amazing things at this group. Really good stuff.
Can you talk about it? Like, how do you operate now? What does a day look like to you and your team? How big is your team too? Just talk about the whole business itself.
Yeah, One West Group. Our headquarters is in Glendale, Los Angeles, and we are a commercial advisory exclusively powered by EXP Commercial, which is a very large cloud-based brokerage. But we're a brokerage within a brokerage,
Mm,
and we focus on a few different asset classes within the group: medical office, retail, a bit of industrial, and then multifamily. And a lot of that is multifamily development.
right.
So we're doing like land assemblages and working with developers and helping them pick up new product and
Yeah,
then
new
helping them,
construction.
develop new product. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is cool. So this group, collectively, I think over the last couple of years, it's done a little over 350 million in volume. We've got about, I'd say, 8 advisors on the commercial side, probably about 30 or 40 on the residential side. And I'm located here in the San Francisco market, and so I'm the head of the San Francisco office. My senior vice president, Carlo Markarian, is holding down the fort in LA, and then we're actively pursuing new recruits that are going to open up offices in Miami, New Jersey. We've got a small group in Austin, Texas, right now, and we're actively pursuing the goal of becoming the largest commercial advisory group in EXP Commercial, which is really exciting because we haven't really met too many groups on the commercial side at EXP that are growing as fast as we are. So we're so right now we've got several assignments. I'd say we probably have about 2 billion in pipeline in our group, and a lot of it's coming in from institutional principals and REITs, particularly within the medical office asset class, and then a lot of family office and kind of higher net worth individuals who are trading and doing 1031s currently in our markets. In California, it gets a bad rap by a lot of people. And I think it's because a lot of those people don't know what the hell they're doing in California and they just here for the weather. But in all
Or to be a
seriousness,
star, or to be a star, right?
yeah, yeah. But in all seriousness,
Yeah,
there's quite a bit of activity that's happening here in the Bay Area, particularly around multifamily. It is now the hottest submarket in the country. Multifamily and multifamily development. We're seeing vacancy rates plummet. We're seeing cap rates compress. We're seeing new construction and new products like just going vertical like crazy. So although you might see, online influencers tell you that California is, in like literally on fire, it's not the case where we are right now. It's very, very hot. It's a very hot market for that asset class. Yeah.
I see. And it's like a new construction too. I'm seeing some trends in new construction. New construction has been competing more with, buying something that's already established, and that's one trend that do you agree with that? Like new construction has been coming up right now. I could be wrong with that, but I'm seeing it. They're now competing with, because it's before it was like the idea was, I think not too long ago, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you would think new construction would be more expensive, not that
Yeah.
lucrative. But I think, what's your thought on that? Because like we're into pay offers and we're big on fix and flips, so it's kind of new to us that new construction is coming up. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll speak to my local submarket because that's predominantly where I transact. Even though we do have nationwide reach and we do have deals like in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we're doing a retail center and we've got storage facilities that we're brokering that are nationwide. We have nationwide reach, but I'm specific. Like I'm constantly in my submarket, right? So, a lot of the statewide incentives that are um, available for builders currently and are coming online for builders are incentivizing density. And we're seeing more development along transit corridors because of density bonus laws from within the state. A new ordinance that came into effect called SB 79 that's allowing builders to essentially construct new development along transit corridors without having to go through, the rigmarole of public review. And it's created an entitlement tailwind that's incentivizing new builders and creating remedies to these builders that allow them to really build the density. And we're seeing AI coming in like a wildfire, and so technology is picking back up in the Bay Area. But the crazy thing about technology in Silicon Valley is everybody thinks of tech being the largest industry in Silicon Valley. It's not anymore. It's healthcare. Healthcare is now the number one industry in Silicon Valley. And we're seeing from Sacramento, our state capital, all the way down to San Jose, the bottom of the peninsula here in the Bay Area, massive corridor of new development that's occurring. And it's because of the silver tsunami that we're experiencing. We're seeing these baby boomers that are getting older that need more care. And we're seeing a lot of decentralized facilities that are becoming more centralized through this new development that have doctors' offices, surgeons' rooms, rehabilitation facilities. It's all getting integrated within these consolidated facilities that are creating tons and tons of jobs. So, along with the transient worker being rooted within those corridors and new Class A development, because absorption rates are actually quite good. I think right now it's like 30 units a month, and state mandates requiring a lot of these cities to develop an X amount of units for the next 5 years. It's just kind of all coalescing in a way where we're seeing so much new development, which is amazing. So there's that side of the coin. The other side is the garden apartment owner, the mom and pop, or the small family office that has had their apartment buildings since like the 80s and 90s. Like now they've got a very low basis, and now they're looking to transact and move all that equity and exchange it into something that they can secure their cash on cash return and their equities. So they're not going to sell and take the gain, the hit. They're going to exchange into something else, and that step up is why we all invest in real estate. Honestly, we buy, we borrow, and then we die.
I like that.
Or we exchange and then we die.
Right, we borrow, we die. I like that. But yeah, that explains it a lot in the same situation here in Chattanooga. And it's like, I'm just the incentives. Is it for all builders, like private builders, or just national or government?
Any builder,
Okay, that's
any builder,
why.
yeah,
Okay.
any builder in the state, and so obviously the larger institutional builders and the bigger developers are going to have a field day. But yeah, if you're a fix and flipper and you want to tear down this single family residence and then build 8 condos, like you'll be able to take advantage of these density bonuses, because you build 5 units or more, now you can really play with the density.
Gotcha. Well, now I want to go back to you, right? Again, this is we're done, not done, but like we've talked about the real estate. But now I want to talk about growth in your business, right? As the
Mm.
business has grown, and you've mentioned that you're more of an advisor now. You've advised more investors. What aspects of your work have become more complex, like right now, or any challenges that you are experiencing? What has been the complexity of those challenges?
Yeah, I'd say within the commercial transaction, there's a bit more complexity in the financing and in the underwriting and in the due diligence. So when we advise our clients, we're looking at ways to shine light on dark areas that they may have missed or looked over. And unlike residential, when you receive your disclosure package, commercial real estate, like I think residential, you get like 70 pieces of material. Or you check 70 boxes. It's just a very large kit that you have to go through. In commercial, it's like 5 boxes that you tick. So there's quite a bit of due diligence that needs to occur on the buying side to make sure they're not buying, let's say, an old bank that had a dry cleaner that was, in business in the 60s, that was taking all their chlorinated solvents and pouring them in the planter in the front. That triggers an environmental review. And so looking at those transactions with a fine tooth comb is where we set ourselves apart from a lot of other brokers, because we have construction backgrounds. We're able to look at the built environment a little more intimately. And then the transactions financing, outside of just buying something cash, because we do work with clients that do a bit of that. Stitching the capital together. Sometimes when you buy the real estate, you're buying a business. So there's a lot of nuance in the paperwork as well. So, I going back to your kind of point about the team and the group, in order for us to do, our work as advisors, we need to learn how to delegate and relegate all of those administrative tasks to those that do it better than us. So, for an example, is transaction coordination. In residential, we're all so used to seeing transaction coordinators support our transactions and getting all the paperwork together and making sure principals are signing the paperwork. In commercial, there really isn't a transaction coordinator. It's generally the broker that's coordinating the transaction. So the higher level brokers and those who know releasing that administrative task to somebody who's really good at it will empower them and leverage their time in a way that now they can like really focus on their advisory, on the deal, on the negotiation, on the principle. Instead of having to chase like an ABC form from, some seller's broker, and then you have to go to, the state, and then you've got to circle back to, it's just like your hair is going to be on fire, and you've got 7 or 8 transactions at once. There's no way you're going to be able to coordinate all of that. So, the team is also advisors, but we also have administrators, coordinators, lenders, and everybody in between to like assemble a little micro economy, so that when we do open up escrow, we've got a rocking team that can take it from start to finish as smoothly as possible. And you probably know that it's never smooth. There's always bumps along the way, and our job is to try and mitigate as much of it as possible. And we do that through really clear and clean communication, effective communication, and making sure that we're not missing anything. So the attention to detail is everything.
Gotcha. It seems very streamlined the way you described it, right? Because like I would think it was a lot of coordination, but like I think there's an advantage of just having that broker do everything. No, not everything, but like do the coordination. And then I makes me think like why not more people, even in residential, like we should be doing that too, right? Because like there's a lot of that's streamlined. That's the only word that I can think of, like really more
Yeah.
streamlined in that way. Well,
Yeah.
well, that got into business. I really want to get into you again. I have 3 more questions, and we don't
Yeah.
have much time in this podcast, but still, we can chill. First
Yeah. We're good.
question. Yeah. First question, and I want to go back to you, Diego. This is more of what the podcast is about. In the perfect world, I asked this question to every guest. Okay, and there's no right or wrong answer. We just want to hear opinions. In the perfect world, we have confidence and skill perfectly melding together in your mind and in your body, right? And like it creates it creates the opportunities that you take, right? And makes you successful. But in your mind, if you were to choose only one personally, which is more important, confidence or skills?
Mm.
Choose one. No cap, no cap answer here.
No cap.
Yeah,
Ah,
right. Of course, both
that's
are
a
important,
good
but like,
question. Yeah,
which is
both are
more
very
important?
important. I think I'd probably take skills.
Yes. Okay, I'm team skills to be honest with you. Okay, tell
I'm
me
team
why.
skills. Yeah, I think over time, you can always get better at your skills. You can always improve upon your skills. You can always diversify your skills. I love using the analogy of having a quiver of arrows. You can always add more arrows to your quiver. Um, so that will generate confidence. You know, the more competence you have, the more confidence I think you can muster up as time goes on. So
Gotcha.
skills team, go
I
team,
me
go.
too. Yeah, I'm skills. We've so far we're losing with all the guests. They're all coming because what I realize again, there's no right or wrong answer because there's a not conundrum, but like both are correct. You need the skills to build confidence, but you also need
Mhm.
confidence to find those skills or to improve those skills. So nothing is wrong. But for me,
It's
I
true.
think in real estate, a lot of people in real estate they think it's immediately. Here's the question I always want to ask them, right? They when you ask them, they say it's confidence. Confidence is confidence to knock on the door, confidence to talk to people, right? But when it comes to hiring people wanting to join the team, they look for skill,
It's
right?
true.
It's usually they get like they get uncomfortable with too much confidence. So I'm like, I think internally people want to say confidence, but in reality, for me, I believe in
Yeah.
skill too. It's like you'll see
I
it.
you can certainly go either way.
Right,
In
right.
terms of the confidence, confidence is going to, for those who are more confident that lack the skills, they will be more inclined to take action. So those who have too like all the skills, maybe they don't have the confidence to take action, so they kind of spin their wheels inside their heads, right? And so I guess it really depends on the individual who's more confident. As long as they take action and then they can integrate the skills and the lessons and really fortify that quiver, so to speak, then I could see them be I could see them kind of with a bigger head start, because they're taking imperfect action, they're integrating lessons, and they're downloading, and then they rinse and repeat, which is great. But for me, like being on the team skills, it's like, well, I can have I already have the confidence, I feel like. So like I would just take on more skills.
Right. I've failed too many W-2 interviews by just having confidence. That's the reality of it, right? For my when I
Yeah.
was still doing the W-2s, it was like really confidence, like what you said, I believe I have confidence too. Like that's why we, have the ability to do podcasts and interviews and stuff. But it's like, you can't get past skill because I think it depends on the
Mhm.
industry as well. Because I've had a lot of people in the IT world where they don't talk but they get hired because but that's the IT industry. In real estate, if you don't talk, you don't get to sell your property, right? You don't get to
Yeah,
get the deals.
it's
It's
true.
really it's an
It's
interesting
true.
conversation to have, right? It's like it's
It
not
is.
argumentative. I love it. So we'll see what content we have, but here's a question for you. I think you will find this interesting because recently I watched a podcast of a person who worked in NASA and science person she asked this question to the podcaster like what is happiness, and I answered that question and I want to steal a quote from of all people Tracy Morgan, a funny guy, I like him,
Mhm.
but like he said happiness is um, having something to look forward to, right?
Mm.
Happiness is having something to look forward to, and if I were to modify that I would say happiness is something to look forward to and having the opportunity to express yourself as a human being, right? To you, what is happiness?
Mm. Well, what immediately comes to mind is health and service. To me, that's happiness. Like being able to wake up every morning and get up and be of service and to bring value to the world, um, lights me up. And so, if I would describe it in two words, it would be health and service. That to me brings a lot of happiness into my world. Um, and I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, like everybody on the planet, and the OG man, and he talks about how We give ourselves the ability to build and to grow so that we can give. And the more you give, the happier you're going to be. It's kind of cliche to so to speak. It's a feel good thing, but like you can't just give because you want to be happy. I mean, you have to be intentional. You have to give with what you seek. You have to give in a way that, isn't about you. It's about them. It's always about them. And so that brings a lot of happiness into my world, my friend, is health and service.
Which is more important, health or service? No, I'm just kidding. No, just no. That's of course, health and service is good, but like
Two sides
that
of the
will.
same coin.
You're right, exactly. But yeah, I kind of want to take back my answer. Sounds selfish now, but no, it's okay. That's wonderful. Health and service. What do you do? Last question for me, and then one more request after this. What do you do to stay healthy? Because that's not. I don't have a lot of opportunity to talk to people like you who have been in the whole food industry. 'Cause I'm trying as well. Recently, just turned 32. I just said my age, right? So I'm trying to, when I turned 30, I was trying to, be more healthy, started the exercise. And I agree with you, it's been more difficult to get just purely whole foods, and not only whole foods, like non-GMO whole foods. For you, I want to know what you do personally, right? What do you do to stay healthy?
Well, it's a great question. I think over the years, I've been able to intimately understand and know my mind and body in a way that has kind of allowed me to develop and curate a protocol or like a regimen. So, being an athlete my whole life, obviously I love sports. I love athletics. I love playing games. I love just the activity of it, and the feelings afterwards, because you're just the endorphins and all the dopamine. Yeah. It's good stuff. So, that's been a big kind of bedrock for me from an early age, because that's something that my parents exposed me to quite early, is athletics and sports. I played sports my whole life. And so going to the gym and getting exercise is a non-negotiable for me. And then, practicing mindfulness and meditation is something that I recently, well, I guess not recently, but over the last 15 years, since since Earthbeam, became more intimately aware of my mindscape, and where and how to traverse and explore my mind and my imagination. So I'd say mindfulness, meditation, imagination, creativity, working out, eating healthy, eating clean, not eating late at night, eating between a certain amount of time. Yeah, like stop eating when you're full or nearly there. And exposing myself to positive content, things that are either benefiting humanity or are constructive or are educational. So learning something new or constructive and exposing myself to that positivity is important. And then music. I've been playing music my whole life too, so I have to play music, and so we get together. I got some friends that we're in a group, and we make noise, once a month. And so that also is important for me to kind of congregate with my friends and get outside of work and play music and be creative, and, spending time with family, obviously. And so all of that is just kind of woven into kind of an experience or a journey of health.
And wellness, overall wellness, right?
And wellness. Yeah. It's definitely a journey. So it changes as we grow and we evolve and we age. It's like a golf swing. It's dynamic. It's going to change as you grow and age. So
I
Yeah.
said last question. I'm sorry. You just opened up like a bunch of things I want to ask. Just you can answer this quickly. What sport?
Yeah.
And what's your main sport? And what kind of music you like listen to? I'm a music major, by the way.
Ah. s-
Piano major.
Oh, cool. Very, very cool. So I six string guitar player. Started when I was 11 years old, and then picked up the bass and the drums as I began playing with other musicians. And music, I'm a big fan of everything, but I'd say right now, what I'm listening to quite a bit of is, and I don't know why, maybe it's a phase, but like I've been listening to a lot of like early 90s grunge music, and it's probably because I'm an elder millennial, but Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam and
Who sang
Nirvana. And
song two? Who sang song two? Um,
was that
forgotten the name.
oh gosh, that was probably Pearl Jam, wasn't it? I want to say.
No, no, no. Blur. You listen to that Blur?
Oh,
Do you know
Blur. Yeah,
Blur
I remember
song two?
Blur.
I grew up with
I
that too,
remember
bro.
Blur. I got to listen to
Right?
that. Wow. Yeah,
Gotcha. Song two,
you
right? Song
did.
two was I
Yep.
love that.
It's a good song. Yeah. Yeah.
Nirvana. Okay. I didn't expect that from you. No, sorry. I just not to seem like I'm assuming anything, but like it's just clean cut CRE investor and listen to grunge. That's so
I know.
cool, man.
I
That's
know.
so
I know.
cool. You like to rock out on the weekends and like that's so cool. Sport. Sorry, your sport. What's your favorite sport?
Well, I played a lot of soccer. From like that was probably my first like big love as a sport, but then played baseball quite a bit through adolescence and into high school. We won our senior CCS championship when I was a senior in high school, so that was a lot of fun. And then we pick up once in a while when we can, but I'd say soccer and baseball. Big fan of basketball too. We used to play roller hockey when I was a kid. And we would like check each other against the garage doors of the townhomes that we lived in, and so like hockey was a big. I mean, I love all the sports, but playing them, I think growing up, I had the most fun soccer and baseball.
So you follow soccer and baseball too, right? In
Yeah,
life or like cool. All right. So I just
yeah.
wanted to these are the topics that I usually don't get to lean into during the first episode. But anyway, last request. So that was the last question, promise. This is the last request now, not a question. If you were, sorry, not if you were, not a question. Please give me your last statement or give the audience your last statement and what would be your last message? Sorry, that's a question. Your last message and
Oh,
last
yeah.
statement to our audience. Anybody, could be for real estate, could be, I would love if it were to be your personal message in life.
Yeah, yeah. I'd say be curious. Be curious. Ask questions. If something feels good and feels right, explore it, and continue to explore it until you know it intimately. I think curiosity and creativity is such a beautiful human expression that it can't be hindered. It can't be stuffed away because of X, Y, or Z. Like be curious, ask questions. If you have a passion, explore it. No matter if your mom or dad or grandma or grandpa says you shouldn't, just go out there and do it. Have fun, and make a difference. Like help others because there's so many of us out here that really could use help. And open a door for an elderly lady or pick up a tab for an old friend, or it could be anything. Just think about others. We could really use that right now.
Thank you. That is an awesome way to end the podcast. Thank you very much, brother Diego. It's been wonderful,
Yeah,
very unique, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Right.
I did. I appreciate the time. I really do.
Thank you.
Thank you.